So, we're talking. Those watching the video right now, right. So, well, this is just an intro video, and when I looked at, I did the sound didn't sound so good, but it was just a little bit about what we did the last time, and then we have another video about what was that? This is what I was supposed to show you guys in the beginning.
The homes, many of which were, very much, and so after every person, he has the person who purchases it, and they mentioned, they don't have the funds to give a up the property, like do what Brother John, because, you were talking, rush, kind of thing back to any of them. And so then you want to have this big community of buildings that are in a state, rest of the Garden State, and it looks like the African Americans, they don't want to keep a property. I don't want to live there for them, and none of them now, once they do, they don't want that.
And that's why I really wanted to show that there was fear still, there were pressures within the community, in life, evident where it's not possible to contrast with other things, a lot of pressure on everybody.
The district has to change to be and also. Times that natural state level for recreation and pushing for that. So I really stand much more broad than that in terms of events like this and the industry and part of recreation, from the UN, Jason Declaration, is the promise of non-compete. So it involves looking at the systems that are embedded in the way the world is going on, that are repeated.
It's so bad. I was, guys, okay, sorry. I apologize for bringing you that torture, but it's on the Eventbrite. It's just out, and we did this last time, and I thought it would be important to get the conversation started just to see that, what we're trying to accomplish here. And it's more than just, to me, this work is more than just like some data, some numbers, passion for the community and working in the community. And a lot of us, my listeners are saying when they get here to Boston, they're told specifically to not come to Dorchester and Dayton. At least from India, I got an email, he just goes, I don't know, okay, I'm not gonna come, right? But these are the things that are going on, like how long have you been here? 6 months, so this is very recent. And in the 6 months he's been here, he's been told not to come to Dorchester. And what does that mean for the businesses here? What does that mean for the community? Because there are people that live here, they have businesses open. And these businesses need people to come and purchase. Franklin Park 2 is literally right there. So it's not like you can't be coming to a tourist, there's a golf course, there's a zoo, it's the biggest landmark in Boston. But when you're fed that from the beginning, what does that do to your psyche? What does that place? And even if it's not real, it becomes real because we're seeing it over. So, so I wanted to, like I said, we're having a community conversation and we'll pass around, so if you don't want to, but we're going to watch a video, and it's about the historic relationship between the African American and Jewish American community. Ups and downs and ebbs and flows, but the concept where we are today is directly related to the blockbusting stories that we told you now. And the Jewish community is like, oh my God, we left and we participated in white flight, showing you the data to show that. Well, I wouldn't blame anybody for the pressure, right? And then this is systemic throughout the whole America. So somebody was telling me that happened in Baltimore, happened in DC. So this is pipelines that were developed, infrastructural pipelines, in which your ancestors and my ancestors had a shared history. You're in a temple, like I showed you, Martin Luther King's church. Was in the temple, right? And you're here today, following that tradition, trying to see, okay, like, what can we do to make things better? What can we do with the African American community? It's a feeling of betrayal. Oh my God, you guys were the good white folks. Y'all left us to and that's the way the system was developed. It was meant to sieve out our infrastructure, like a sieve or a lens. Like put more schools into an area, people are more educated. Put more fast food into an area, people have 4 hours of college. It's all about proximity. And the fact that for me to leave my daily trip in engineering, that's like from your house to your work, that's most likely your daily trip, or like your kid out to school. To leave that over like half a mile out of that range is like the numbers drop like from 90 something to like 10% of people do that every day. Because that's money. To leave that proximity is costing you money. Costs me money. And that money now, if I do that too much, that takes away from my rent money, my bills, and other things. You're managing your life day to day. So that's why that McDonald's is an option after a couple of generations. Because it's 2 to 3 more times in this community. They're not in Cambridge. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't have, I didn't say healthy food. There's ice cream shops and pizza shops and other things, but those are cultural foods. In general, they're much better than the squeeze burger and fries. In general, I'm not saying it's perfect. I mean, I'm going to pick them up pasta. But Chinese food, same thing. rice, no oil, things like that. So we do advocate for that, but in all we're saying that these are businesses that belong to that community. Right? So, we're gonna have a discussion, there's a remember the historical interest of the Jewish African American, so that we can maybe think of the trail on one side and one group feels that, oh my God, you know what, that was good folks, what happened? I met a woman, this story all the time, an African American woman, like 70s or 80s. She told me her first job was a Jewish American butcher. He would give her meat every weekend. We're talking about segregation, that meat meant a lot. In fact, he even brought problems to their family because the father was not able to be able to provide that kind of meat. This is the depths of what we're talking about. And that betrayal is deep. And on the other hand, Jewish community was over. We, look at what they did to us. They're dangerous. The stories live on in the mind. Like we said, he just died here 6 months and he told them. So this is not true. I don't think everybody, we saw the church people, real dangerous bunch of people right there. Right? Right there, we saw it. That didn't look dangerous at all. But he would never have got to see that if he had listened. So, like I said, this is the video. I saw it's on YouTube, and we can share it with them, with everybody there. This one's clearer, and we able to hear better.
The story of the relationship between the Jewish and Black communities in America is complex, with periods of division, harmony, hostility, suspicion, and apathy. What are the historical roots of both the cooperation and conflict we see between these two communities today, and how do we create a vision for a brighter future? In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Jewish opinions on slavery were in line with their white neighbors. As the politics of the U.S. shifted, Northern Jews increasingly opposed slavery, while Southern Jews continued to be sympathetic to slave ownership, though there were notable exceptions. These included Rabbi David Einhorn, who, in 1861, gave an anti-slavery sermon. His congregation erupted in anger, and the rabbi was forced to flee the north. In the early 20th century, the Jewish community's demographics and opinions began to shift. Jews migrated from hostile countries, settled in northeastern American states where they encountered Black Southerners fleeing Jim Crow laws and others extreme racism. Coming from anti-Semitic Europe, many Jews recognized and drew attention to the parallels in the Black and Jewish experience. Some Yiddish newspapers referred to violent attacks on Black Americans, like the Tulsa Massacre, as pogroms. However, even with these positive developments, division remained between Black and Jewish Americans. Both groups were lightning rods for other people's hatred, and many Jews who aspired to assimilate or just make a living were afraid of associating too much with a group so openly mistreated. This distance remained until the 1930s, when the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany paralleled an increase in anti-Semitism in the U.S. Fearful and in need of allies, Jewish Americans sought support, and the Black community was one of the few to join their cause. Black and Jewish organizations began working together to challenge employment and housing discrimination, combat racial and religious violence, and fight for inclusion in social and professional spheres. In the years following the Second World War, the bond between the communities grew. Jews made up at least 30% of non-Black freedom riders, risking arrest and violence for Black solidarity. Jewish lawyers battled Jim Crow laws, while Black organizations like NAACP, whose founders included Jews, supported the creation of the State of Israel. Black and Jewish Americans, along with other minorities, led the effort to desegregate medical associations, Southern universities, businesses, and community activities, while working to introduce social programs for the benefit of all members of society. While Southern Jewish support for segregation dwindled, the community was still torn over how to respond. Southern Jews faced pressure from their northern counterparts to condemn segregation, but they feared that making official statements against segregation would result in retribution from their white neighbors. Others argued that the community need not make official statements about a topic that didn't directly relate to the Jewish community. As a result, some Southern Jewish institutions withdrew their support for national Jewish organizations that came out publicly against segregation. The growing northern Jewish population did not share the concerns of their Southern counterparts. Iconic photos of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marching alongside the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. encapsulates the best of the Black-Jewish relationship at the time, often called the golden period between the two communities. Rabbi Yochanan Prince, who devoted much of his life to the American Civil Rights Movement, spoke just before MLK took the podium in DC to deliver his famous I Have a Dream speech. Black and Jewish Americans continued the fight for civil rights during the 1964 Freedom Summer Project in Mississippi, where Jewish activists joined others helping register Black voters and joined protests in front of courthouses. In June 1964, James Chaney, Michael Schwerner, and Andrew Goodman were abducted and murdered for their fight for equal voting rights. The ensuing outrage pushed Lyndon Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act the following month. While Jews still faced discrimination in the 1960s, the ability for many Jews to pass as white still set them apart from their Black peers. Jews had relatively greater access to education and finances, giving them more class mobility. These opportunities, combined in some part with the healthy bonds between the communities, enabled Jews to open businesses and buy property in predominantly Black areas, a degree of coexistence that sowed the seeds of discord. A Jew was now their boss, their landlord, or their creditor, playing into age-old anti-Semitic tropes. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, the bonds between the Jewish and Black communities strained under growing racial tensions in urban America. Atlanta's first Jewish mayor employed racist rhetoric in his re-election campaign against Black challenger Maynard Jackson. In 1984, presidential hopeful Jesse Jackson made a number of anti-Semitic comments, referring to Jews as Hindus. The growth and increased visibility of the anti-Semitic Nation of Islam didn't help matters. As the Israeli-Palestinian conflict drew greater international attention, division between the communities mounted as Palestinians were increasingly seen as people of color, with Jews seen as white oppressors. And while many in both communities continued to cherish the golden period of the 50s and 60s, others began to portray Jewish support for civil rights as paternalistic and therefore just another form of racism. Tensions seemed to come to a climax in the 1991 Crown Heights riots, which erupted after a Hasidic man accidentally veered his car onto a sidewalk, killing 7-year-old Gavin Cato. The next day, in retaliation, 29-year-old Yankel Rosenbaum was stabbed and beaten by a group of Black men. Rosenbaum died a few hours later from his wounds. Over the next 3 days, rioters looted stores and damaged Jewish property. The violence of the Crown Heights riots touched a nerve. For some, the pain, mistrust, and anger continues to this day. More recently, old wounds were reopened when voices within movements like Black Lives Matter and the Women's March made anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist remarks. In 2019, extremists connected to the Black Hebrew Israelite movement were responsible for the murder of 4 people, including 2 Jews, at a Jersey City synagogue and kosher supermarket. For some, these are simply isolated incidents. For others, this violence points to a broader, unacknowledged anti-Semitism reflected in Anti-Defamation League polls that find Black Americans are significantly more likely than white Americans to accept anti-Semitic stereotypes. Despite these ongoing tensions, the communities continue to find common ground. A shared sense of fear and urgency after the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville alarmed both communities and triggered a rise in collaboration between some Jewish and Black organizers and activists. In 2019, the late John Lewis, along with congressional representatives, formed the Bipartisan Congressional Caucus on Black-Jewish Relations, which now consists of 55 members. Today's efforts at cooperation always fall under the shadow cast by the traumas of racism and anti-Semitism, pain and mistrust. But there is tremendous hope. 1 year after the Jersey City murders, members of both communities say the violence has forced them to leave their respective bubbles and confront difficult issues together, a model relevant well beyond Jersey City. As Pamela Johnson of the Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition movement said, we may not have always understood each other, but we are all in this together.
Let's get the conversation started. I know it's sometimes it always starts off slow and all of a sudden it's going on, everybody talking. So I think one of the questions I wanted to ask, is what is a pogrom?
I mean, someone else.
No, you can answer it too. Anyway, I don't know what a pogrom is. Obviously, it means something bad, but anybody want to answer? Sorry, right
Everybody in media for the workers' circle. Pogrom is a word that I think comes from the experience of Jews living in Europe during times of anti-Semitic violence, when there would be popular violence from regular older masses of people threatening, uprooting been targeting Jews and often with state support. So not as necessarily the police, people or the government who are doing it, it's completely normal people, but in a way that the state wants to happen and encourages in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say, so the word pogrom actually comes from, at least has some Russian origin, because the word pogrom means like thunder in Russian. So in a lot of ways, so the word pogrom means thunder in Russian. And so, like the way you talked about, sort of very parallel to lynchings that happen in the US, because they function pretty much in the same way. And yeah, largely kind of family settlement. Eastern Europe, yeah, even though it wasn't directly sponsored by the government, but groups like Cossacks were also groups of people who were sort of alienated and forced into certain areas of the family settlement, were kind of put in that position to attack Jews. And often these attacks would happen around major Christian holidays like Easter and Christmas. I also wanted to add a little bit to what the video talked about. Obviously, it's good to take anything you watch on the internet with a grain of salt, and that video kind of does a good job of doing sort of a bird's eye view of some of these relationships. But I think it's important to also say that anti things that are criticism of Israel and maybe anti-Zionist doesn't mean that they're anti-Semitic. And that's, the video does a great job of like making that clear designation. And also talk kind of about the BLM, kind of the one side of the BLM story, but also there were aspects that happened within the Jewish community where back in like 20, so before BLM, 2014, 2015, the movement for Black Lives came out with their 11 principles, and one of them was more clean, more pro-Palestinian, and a lot of Jewish institutions came out against it and basically said, because of this one part, we will not endorse the entirety of it. So, yeah, pushing more and is that there are ways that both communities have kind of worked against each other, and also within like a big piece of our work, the work that Circle's been doing for Marlon and some of the folks at the Hyde Park Community Input Board is that no group is a monolith, and we have to look at this history and what we're doing kind of within the perspective of what's happening. We can't just say, oh, just this happened. Some people in this group with this then means that we can then just assume that everyone in that group agrees with that or even understands that history. I mean, that's a big piece of it.
Like, so, I told you, like, the African American Academy, we focus on cultural diversity, not focus on racial diversity. We look at racial diversity as too broad, the characteristic, archaic way of looking at things, old school way of looking at things, because I come from Nigeria. Well, my mom is African American, my dad is Nigerian. So that means that I'm what? But that's a there's a lot that goes on there. Not to mention, see all this hair? His hair is Lebanese. My last name is Solomon, and my family moved from Nigeria in 1890 something. Who knows? But what I'm trying to point out is that you can't tell all that from my race. And just like that, you're saying that it's not a monolith. I have to teach my young students things. So I have two groups of students. I have my Caribbean students, but I also have Boston Public School kids or kids from Boston. Most of these are from underserved backgrounds. And I have to point out that, because they're like, what's going on with all this Jewish stuff? And I'm, like, they don't know. But they don't see everything as white, but that's what they've been taught. And I go and I I still find it fascinating, like even in the beer, you refer to like with that white counterpart. That's talking about cultural diversity. That's saying within the racial infrastructure, there's different pockets of different people with different histories. That is so important for us to realize because, because like I said, my youth are running away from all people white, they're racist, they're white, they're white, they're white. And I'm like, when I now explain and go through some of the history, we came here, because Lou did this with us in our summer with our youth, we did this with our youth, and, it's like, wow, and there's this, there's this worship movement, this eureka moment where they go, oh, I get it. Because I say, well, not every black person is African American or Jamaican or Haitian or Caribbean, or, like there's different groups within that. And each group has its own history. So I'll actually one other thing I'll say, because during COVID, I was asked to do a talk for senior citizens of Haitian descent. So I went in there, and they had this standard stuff, like MGH, sex. I can't say this because they were assuming that the black people were people who looked at medicine through the lens of race. If you're Haitian, you do not do that. You have Haitian doctors that are black. You have Haitian hospitals that are owned by black people. It's Haiti. None of the black people there. This cultural diversity is very rich because it only works, racial only works here. In America, in Nigeria, everybody's black. It's going to be very hard to pick out people who are based on race. So culture, Europe, the same thing. So this, when I went there, I said, I can't do this because these people are not looking at it through a sense of racism. They're looking at it from more of a natural, we from the island, well, I'm not Nigerian, but Nigerian, we like everything natural and fresh. We talk about Nigerian accent, so you believe it. You understand? So it's like everything has to be fresh food, fresh things. So we don't like anything that's not fresh. Doesn't matter whether it's, like you say, well, why did they give you tablets to vitamin C when there's orange? This doesn't make sense to us. So we're looking at the medicine from the standpoint, we just don't like things that are biologically, like man-made in general. There's got to be some kind of natural way to do it. So what do? I go in there and I get all this information off the internet, grapes, if you chew, like not the seed, the skin of a purple grape, you chew it, there's this little bitter taste. That bitter taste is supposed to help you somehow, your immune system fight against cold with the fruits. Hey, this is the data, there was data apparently on this, but that's what but they were going, and you said, oh yes, and then there's something you do with turmeric, and there's something you do with honey, and they started going on and all these concoctions that they make, right? And then started into a lively conversation, and then started talking about vaccines. But by that time, they didn't look at me as a stooge or part of the system coming to talk to them, a robotic, predisposition, well market research methods to communicate to this community. Because it was about race, it was kind of look at it, but yes, when you look at African Americans, you have to look at it like that. Say, okay, well, these people are used to being experimented on, they've been tortured, they've been forced sterilization. This is the history. So you go to them, you have to go to them with a different story, because they're black, I get it. But let's look at the content of one's character, which is what Martin Luther King said. That is developed by your culture, that's who you are. Where your family comes from. It's not your race. You don't look at black cat and white cat and go, you like that. I got my eyes on you. So why do we do that to ourselves as human beings? That's what I'm going to add about the cultural diversity. It's an integral part of our programming and what we work on. And it's easy for those of us. How many of us are from like live outside the country, kind of have outside the country roots? Yeah. It's easier. I don't know if any of you want to talk on it. That's like cultural diversity, like living in other parts of the world. Anyone, just I gotta get it off my hands. I'm trying to warm it up and pass.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sasha. I'm from the Netherlands, that's where I grew up. My other steps, my mom's from Zambia. So, I've never actually lived in Zambia, but we do visit every year, and when growing up, I was used to growing up around two different cultures, so I'm very much, yeah, into the multicultural part, as well as the multiracial, of course, because the Netherlands, we do have a lot of people of color, but of course, when I'm there, I'm black, but when I'm in Zambia, I'm white. So it's really interesting to see that difference when we start between two countries.
Right?
Thank you. My name is Brooke, and I kind of come from the other side of this coin, which is born and raised in the United States, but I work internationally. Most of my work is in Sub-Saharan Africa, Haiti, and I have thought a lot and continue to think a lot about what is my role as a well-intentioned, formally educated white person from the North working in the South. And it's to be subversive. In every revolution, there needs to be a partnership between people who've been marginalized by those who have, are hegemonically oppressed, and people who stand in positions of power and privilege. And in certain contexts, we each stand in different places, right? In gender, for a gender lens, as a woman, I might be marginalized in certain contexts, but as a white person, for America, I certainly am sitting in multiple, in the intersection of multiple things, like positions of privilege and power. And as a subversive, in that revolution, my role is first to listen, and then, to ask some questions. It's listening, then it's amplifying what I'm hearing, and building these bridges together. And then blowing up buildings. They've gotten us to a point where, there's just so much harm. Being perpetuated by the crossings that have been there. So I'm excited to hear other perspectives and listen. Because my grandmother, now she just died at 93 a couple of years ago, but sort of an old Jewish grandma trope of 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it in that ratio. And I think that's what we can all do. But thank you.
Anybody else? I don't mind getting up back. All right, that's great. That's great insight. One of the things, okay, that following on tropes. One of the things because that's kind of what tropes or stereotypes. I was, unfortunately, when you live in a place where people have lived for thousands of years, like Africa, stereotypes are actually kind of real. But I think in American context, it used for negative purposes, like this makes it make sense. So I don't know, like, what are some of the good question on that? What are some of the things that you could change the definition of, like what the truth is, like what you want to be? Like for instance, so I don't like America being called like necessarily a democracy before 60 years ago, because my people learn a lot of law. And then they say, oh, women could vote in 1921. Yeah, that was white women could vote in 1960. So it's like, I think some of these like definitions, I find them to be like very harmful because they perpetuate, like validate ideas that, oh, we're all American. If we look at it from the fact that we have only a 60-year-old democracy, then I think we're looking at it from a different lens. And if we look at it from, oh, we have 250 years of American, it's still no democracy. Well, I mean, okay, even if you want to say, not let's get it right, but at least in 1921, that's like, I mean, well, women have been able to vote in this country for 100 and what, 150 years or so, right? Like, not that long. And African Americans, only 60 years, so is it really like, so what best, the reason why I say that is what vestiges are remaining, remember, like pulling up the old ones. I don't think we can't blow them up just yet because we want to get as many people across.
Right, I mean, like,
We want to blow them up.
Process, right?
Yeah, but definitely we want to blow them up really, but yeah, so I think those are some of the things that I find. So I don't know, like, I just put the different intersectionality.
To say something, I have to go
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to,
Sorry.
thank people for coming, for saying, but I also wanted to share that the other thing I mentioned about the relationship with Boston desegregation. This year is the 50th anniversary of the court case, the court case, which carried a lot of relationship. In 1967, Boston school community was under pressure to organize a lot of community by segregating schools, agreed to build four schools in Dorchester, Oakland, and Education schools. At the time, those neighborhoods were white neighborhoods and their black neighborhoods. And one of the schools, this is called Joseph Lee School, it's on Alabama. It's about 10 miles from and 1967, at the area of Joseph Lee School was going to integrate the black and white areas, so it was open as an integrated school. And in 1971, the school was open. So the other changes, it really hard to put open the school as integrated so easily. So to comply with the school committee initially sent 200 white students to the school. And the school was in Washington because of the school. Parents rebelled and organized against it. 600 of the white parents then. And the school committee to change the code. But they made this agreement, they got an enormous amount of state assistance to build the school. And we made that agreement. And the court system was filed 6 months later. And that sequence of events was significantly significant. Actions of the school committee that this in schools. In some cases, there was the connected
Yeah, what we're doing, he's part of the, we're doing, we have 2 more weeks, and I know we're definitely going to sense everybody's time, because it is very fast when we're supposed to be, but, I'll be here to, we want, and thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Next week, we're gonna be at the West End Museum. So it's kind of like going backwards, but that's how the time went. We'll be at West End Museum with the African Meeting House and Joy Street, as well as talking about the Italian communities in, around the North End, West End. I'll get to. And then the week after that, with me and him are going to be doing a symposium at Hyde Park High School. So we're bringing in like people that actually went through bus segregation around in Miami. And very popular. So yeah, in high school, and I was important. So they'll be there. We have possibly gonna have Ayanna Presley, possibly gonna have Julia Mejia and Roxy Gion, and some of the local politicians and like workshops and discussion things like this. So please just look out. It's all on the event right now. It's not only this week, but well, yeah, I'm gonna say I just wanted to make sure I close that button off so that anybody needs to leave, don't feel like us talking here. But I also want to hear more about what it is you guys got going on and some friendships. I'm very long-winded.
Hey everyone, I'm alive. Thanks, Rosen. Very cool, man. Just in terms of your last question, like what are stereotypes that you're thinking about? I have a question, I guess, for the group around like the usefulness of the idea of like Black-Jewish relations or relationship. I think for me, like, I grew up in a pretty white Jewish community, and so it's what people like teach me in the community, non-white Jews, that, oh yeah, not all Jews are white. And like Naki said, Jews aren't a monolith, Blacks aren't a monolith in terms of our opinions. And so I guess like seeing a video like that where it presents this idea that like the relationship is hard or continues, I'm not sure myself of like how useful the idea of that is, and I'm curious if you have thoughts on where to go from here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. I like to love that. So I grew up in New Jersey, a suburb of Manhattan, called Teaneck. I don't know if you've heard of Teaneck, New Jersey. Yeah. There is a very robust Jewish population as well as a very robust Black American population. And you know that, like, when I was living there as a child, I could very clearly see like the tensions and like the conflicts and like the areas of like I was mainly aware of the tensions around that, and then I moved to Houston for college, and was like immediately blown away by the racism and the things that I was seeing after leaving like Metro New York. So and also just I saw the way that like Judaism was sort of like exoticized among people that did not grow up around it, and I saw like I heard from people like my friends that grew up with the astonishing ignorance they were encountering among like white peers that had not grown up around people of color. So I think there's something really powerful about like that coexistence for sure, and I also I think that a lot of it it does make sense for sort of like in America, Black communities be allies. I think they are like national allies. In addition to the fact that obviously like there are intersections and there are Black communities talking about that. So yeah, that's what
Harry, everybody. There you go. Go ahead.
Well, as a enthusiastic member of the Boston Workers Circle, people who know me probably wouldn't be surprised that I'm kind of talk about the history of Jewish socialism as a political force in this country. My friends are laughing, so I just talk about it. So they're organized. But I think that history that a lot of Jewish immigrants came to this country with socialist or communist ideas that they brought with them from their old countries is really important to understanding this political history and also understanding the way that the Red Scare and the attempts to bust up that political history and political lines are with us today. But I think it's relevant to this conversation about Jewish Americans and African Americans because at one point the Communist Party in the United States was really a leading force in fighting for both of those groups and building unity between both those groups in the 1930s, like high point of segregation and racist violence in the South. The Communist Party was, I think, half Jewish. It was like a mass organization with about 1 million members. It was deep in labor struggles and housing struggles. And when this was like totally taboo in U.S. politics, that was the organization that took up legal defense for the South for a group of young Black teenagers who were charged with raping a white woman in Alabama and tried in front of an all-white segregationist jury. And they went out and raised money for the legal defense among Jewish garment workers, sweatshop workers in New York, and sent money to the South to defend them. And so I think that history that then was really uprooted, targeted with the Red Scare and the uprooting of multiracial organizations, left organizations, by the government is part of the history that we don't see in there in that video, but that speaks to the power of that historic alliance and maybe the reason why it was seen as powerful and disruptive and threatening and was targeted for disruption was because of how powerful it is.
In fact, the silence is definitely one of those things. Like I always talk about JFK. To give Lyndon B. Johnson that video credit for he's not the reason why the civil rights movement came about, because of, and he gave his life, and his brother gave his life for this ideology of fighting for people of color. Now, were they perfect? No, nobody's perfect. That's the thing, but they don't give JFK back. Why is that? Because he broke the cultural barrier on Protestant white men being quote. He was a white man, but he was an Irishman. His grandchildren, his grandparents could have been like the indentured servants and the, you know, like that's where his ideology comes from, because that shared touching of like, you know, like being people who have been subjugated, people who have been discriminated against. It's a bond. Like, I don't care what anybody say. Like, I understand. You know, when you've gone through another serious situation. So, you know, they give Lyndon B. Johnson, but he's silent on JFK for some of the same reasons that I think is silence on communism. Because there's certain things that, like the redlining and what I'm talking about here. It should be, everybody should know about this, but nobody knows about it because it's so damning. You know, they say, is America a racist country? I'm sorry, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I just showed you every square inch, every square centimeter, whatever the imperial or metric is designed with racism, physically. That's what we just described here. That's why this place is no longer Jewish. Because this was driven out of here through anti-Semitic policies that happened to lump the African Americans, and like there's a pipeline from Rock Lady here. And they use us here to now scare Jewish people to sell their houses and leave. That's what happened. That's what happened. And that complex history is not told. So how do we come together as we have conversations? Anybody else? Yes. Tell you.
So Zach, yeah, it's so crazy. As you said, like, remember in high school, I read this book called The Raising the Sun about this African American family who has to do this, like, the struggle like, the struggle adversities that they overcome as we're trying to get there. And reading it, it was like, okay, yeah, it's story, but it really took like later on, like actually reading about like redlining, actual history of like the housing, the Richmond inequality map, and all those other things, so that there's some context of how deeply linked this is to the cities that we live in, and understand how living in these different places shapes how people come out and the conditions they have to survive and succeed. So it's extraordinary to me that it's not like taught better in schools, right?
To talk more about like a Black Jewish line, I think beyond the history of shared oppression, like speaking as a Jewish American, multi-generation American, I think in this history, like from my perspective, what I see is like when white Jews like move from these neighborhoods to other places, like in order to gain access to privilege, I think also certain things were lost in our cultural richness and like our language and our literature and our music. And like I think I would rather like Jewish community not to those who have access, like choose kind of be a part of like the white wonder bread ability and instead like embrace our history as a representative of our cultural heritage, and like we should be multilingual again, we should create music and we should do all these things and like, to embrace our status as a cultural minority with our own heritage and like, continue on that. I think we can like ally ourselves with the Black community who also has you know, like a very rich cultural diversity, and that's something we can share and have in common, I think.
Yeah, I want to add that. So my family came to the U.S. in 1995 after the fall of the Soviet Union from the deaths in Ukraine. And part of that, we were part of this wave that came incentivized by the American Jewish community in the U.S. There was like the 70s and 80s. There's this save Soviet Jewry. And the idea was that we were seen as kind of, religiously oppressed, and that we liberated from the Soviet Union and we went into the United States so that we could, reclaim our Jewish identity, reconnect to our Jewish practices. When the reality was that we were still Jewish in the Soviet Union, even though it wasn't as visibly seen. People still spoke Yiddish. I grew up with grandparents that spoke Yiddish. And so there was this weird juxtaposition of us coming here being told, oh, you're not, like, let us teach you how to be Jewish again. But we never stopped being Jewish, it just looked different. And also that being also combined with, I grew up most of my life in Boston, and with this similar understanding, like you said before, like, pretty much the moment you step into the US, you are immediately thrown into a racial system, and you're told who's bad and who's good, and the places you're supposed to go and places you should go. And yeah, I think similarly, up until basically college, I never stepped foot in an organization at an Oxford because my entire life I was told those are the dangerous places that to avoid. Just wanted to resonate with. There's just so much that ended up being, in some ways, there was material gain for Jews that, left or chose and forced to leave these areas. There was material gain of, like, accruing wealth, property that was then brought in the suburbs. But there was, I think, in a lot of ways, way more that was lost in our culture. In New York, in a lot of ways, the same sense of community was lost. It wasn't as integrated of a network and web people and businesses, integrated together, because the suburbs you basically had your home, your birth, and then people chose to continue to engage in Jewish life or Jewish community at their synagogues. It was so much more so isolated in that way that
Just a quick question for devil's advocate. So, speaking of someone who's fourth generation American on my dad's side, Eastern European Jewish immigrants, and my mom's side, half of them have been here since late 1700s. Jewish. Having the optionality and the privileges that come along with living in the suburbs, like better schools, like it's a trade-off that people make, right? Like people consciously make a choice at that point to opt out of the cultural connections that might have come living in a more densely populated community, whereas a lot of the Black men in the diaspora community still don't have that choice, right? And I think that's why we're all here, is thinking like, how do we navigate this moment? Knowing that we all work for options. Everyone wants more options. Everyone wants more security. But the structures that, especially redlining, but on top of all the other stuff that led us to that moment in history, continue to press communities that want markets. So I'm with you, but also at that, when it brought back.
I would say that, so one thing that, my culture that I found teaching is that land influences and the main driver of culture, right? So if you live near a river, you're more likely to eat fish. That's why we got clam chowder. Because we are in a location that clams exist. We develop skill sets that develop and work this land, and that skill set is information we pass on to our children, and they are able to provide products and services that bring money into our community. That's the culture generated revenue. So invariably, laws are developed to change the land so that it doesn't happen. And what do I do that that's all I can do is fish? Things like that, right? I won't be able to make money, I won't be able to sell my grandchild, I won't be able to do none of that. So what does this mean, what I'm trying to say to that? This removal of this area to me obviously shows that it's extremely cultural, right? Because I mean, you've seen the artifacts that are in this very small little niche, 1, 2, 3 GMGs. So that's like 4 places, right? This little place. So this place is extremely cultural. I can imagine all the shops and everything along Google Lab. If it's not feeding you, you cannot make money from your cultural activities. The culture will die. There's no way around it. So you have to be making money from selling food, selling the clothes, going to the movies, all the things that happen, the events. A party is the #1 social economic money engine. Because you have to buy the food from your people, if you're Asian, Chinese. If you want to buy Chinese food, who do you want to buy the food from? Your brother, your sister, and that's how the money moves within your civilization. So the way to get, going that is in that context, and move forward. I see cultural hub development as how these communities are. It's happening just down the street, it's Haitian. I'm telling you, in 20 years, it's going to be little Haiti. Not events, which are clearly square. Because they already got like 3, 4 restaurants popping up all over the place. And this place is going to be like an African American, Haitian event. Why? And it keeps the money in this community. So I see supporting these cultural activities as part of how, yes, but one thing you have to understand, the system and white supremacy culture, it is against all culture. It deculturalizes everyone. My children, my cousin Nigerian, my mother is African American, I cannot speak in Nigerian language. I can talk like a Nigerian, but I can't speak any language. Okay? My children will not even get that. And so that has happened multiple generations over time because this place just basically deculturalizes you. The Native American schools that they have here that were deculturalizing, they're in Nigeria. St. Gregory's was one of the best schools in Nigeria. It is called deculture. They didn't allow them for generations to speak their local language within the school. So here, he's why he doesn't like Jew people. Because he won't identify as white. They just be white. Isn't that okay? Right there.
So speaking of like white students.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, go ahead.
I like white supremacy, affecting everyone, I think, like taking away the T-stops as an example, is kind of like shooting yourself in the foot just to like cut someone else. And it just like doesn't really, it's like sacrificing so much, like so many downtowns are completely empty in America because of like the legacy of redlining. It's just so weird to make that horrible choice that everyone.
There's another example they used to, when they desegregated the swimming pools, they rather fill in the swimming pools than allow there to be a public swimming pool. And that's what they did at Franklin Park. They gave away Franklin Park. They said, well, the biggest landmark, like, hey, we're not going to let anybody in there. We just want to kill this area. I don't want to keep everybody waiting, so I'm wrapping up. But thank you so much. I really appreciate even the conversation. You can see that this guy is go. But we have to stop this sometimes. So thank you so much. Everybody, we're going to be here. We're going to be doing West End next week. And a whole bunch of you guys. So thank you so much. Yeah, please. Understand?
Yeah, it is a lot that, like, intentions where like, you know, public schools or, you know, like, entirely running around with no questions. And what the town say is that it's chicken and egg, it's chicken and egg, you know.
So these two.
out there to go. Because you can take the natural design plus, keep from that, nothing else in the front. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's small, that's how it is. That's so much space, we have in this work, nothing, like, one thing we did there, nothing was over the cap, and because of this, we just get rid of it, flowing it, now we cut it off. And everything down the line. This is it right here, and so I don't know what else to say. That's the encouraging. You shouldn't be able to get a shot. It's the biggest landmark. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the biggest landmark. So if his architect owns it, it's a final thing, man. City of Washington doesn't have access unless you create the little roundabout. They have buses. Bus not just laughing at them. Because I was just thinking like, lad, trolley map, I'm gonna be like, you just had the trolley and everyone would come down here and money would be pouring. And that way we can sell some of these, if you see like these 6 months there. And they told them not to come to this. But this is the narrative. I'm sorry. Yeah, please. Yes, please. Yeah, because I could keep this going, you know what I mean? It's, but these are the northeastern, they're helping me study the trolley. I've been talking with the community people at High Park, I've been working with the BPDA and trying to get them to, and they put this new post out on their social media to explain what SO and S1 look like. I said, thank you, because we've been going around talking about this. I mean, so anyway, so I'm really trying to do that. It looks, sort of areas. Oh, look, the assets. And that's somebody leave this over. That's yours. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I'm saying. But it's not marketed like that. So they don't want to know. There's no, there's additional cost. And it's like that on first. Integration is over. But it's I hope that this makes sense. Yeah, well, yeah. We had the question. That's what Charles. But the tourist view is, the tourist take that, the tourist view comes below. Why not? They have money, they're not. Because their programs need, that's what they can see. I love the North End. That's, those making money, Chinatown, they're making money. Yes, I got the result. But yeah, but I'm an engineer, I'm coming from this standpoint, and that's what works in a lot of times. Bringing in people, funding your schools. So what school, you're going there to make money. And the money is being there, they can put in schools. That's what the mental program. You take the best and brightest out of this. It's the growth there. It's all dispersal. And so we'll never gather around, never accumulate. And that's why you destroy the life of the South. You destroy all that parents really like study. Because they are literally there bringing into the once it just exists like that, like now. This area, showing the background history area, we're bringing in big plus big. So it's the system. The system needs us to work with you. And that's not an area of everybody can come in and he's scared away. He just not, there's no access. It doesn't matter what I'm Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter. Advocates we have, how many Black lives we have, rules for the traffic. I'm trying to advocate for that. That's how many days you put like 90 through them, but it's still there. Yeah. They've been there grinding in here, bring in, not out. So if anything that advocates for outward movement, it'll move. And that's what I told you, only that's coming in is by not us. So I'm just trying to say, I get why they're going for it, because it's their idea of equity, but they're not looking at it. Yeah, no, I mean, I get that, but I think it's somehow like this idea of like what they have and what they have is nice, but is there really an understanding of what we need? Because I get it, I'm not knocking, like I said, it's nothing wrong. It's just like, yeah, it's like, I'm talking about putting a real train tram down Cedar Street, on top of that, all the key areas that without which this whole area is in a planet. This is. Why do I say that? And access to this area is so dead, and that's why you have a high level of children. And one of the things that they reported about that this area is isolated. There's nobody getting here. Unless you, so that's why it's there. That's like, you know, and moving it, orange lines, orange lines. That's it. Nothing, everything, that's a matter of time. For all this, there's no way in, no way out, all the way around, Ashland, go through the trolley line, and then the trolley there. It was on. It was developed in 1937. It's actually a relic, and I actually read one on it. Why?
Yeah, nice.
It looks like history. That's what I'm taking that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take it once it gets more. I'm going to go down and try it. So you guys can see what it looks like. All right, let's go. You want to bite? But it's going to be warm. It's not going to be this kind of weather. Right. Thank you so much. Please, good job. Please, good job. I give you a card. Yes, I did. Thank you. Oh, no problem. Thank
Oh, you're
you.
welcome. Turn out okay?
Oh, it was nice. That was nice. That's the problem. That's the problem. I just can't believe it. That's the problem. When you don't know what to advocate for, and you advocate for your own life.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, you don't even know what they're advocating for. You have to be. No problem.
No, I'm not in a rush.
Okay, okay. No, but that's what happens. So
But I also
they're
get where
fighting.
I get where you're coming from, where you start with bike lanes, but then what's after bike lanes?
Yeah,
You
like-
get the bike, what's the intention behind the bike lane?
Yes, like, with hike lane, what's the point